Welcome to the Collide Kids podcast, hosted by Christen Clark. This is a show for kids and families. You are going to meet new people and have fun while you listen. Let's do it!
Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Collide Kids podcast. I'm your host, Christen Clark. The Collide Kids podcast is a show for kids and families where we learn together how life and faith collide. I am so glad that you're listening today, and I cannot believe that it's March. Can you? Feels like we just celebrated Christmas, and now it's already time to start thinking about Easter and springtime, and then we're going to start thinking about summer, and then it's going to be fall again. It just goes so fast. I guess when you're an adult, it goes faster than when you're a kid. I'm always amazed. Anyway, if this is your first time listening, I just want to say welcome. I'm really glad you're here. Be sure to listen to the end of every episode. That's where we have the kids only segment where kids just like you get to be on the podcast. Also, if you're listening today and you think, hey, I know someone that would really enjoy listening to this episode, would you take some time to send it to them? Just send them a quick text message or email it to them or share it on your social media and tell them why you enjoyed it and why you thought they would enjoy it as well. It's just a great way to help someone else learn about the show and let them know that you're thinking about them. Well, I am so excited about our guest today, and he has such an inspiring story and such great encouragement for those of us that are working on being better communicators. You know, you don't have to wait until you're an adult to become a better communicator, and you also can start late in life. So that's why I'm really excited for you guys to hear this conversation with Jason Raitz. After 26 years of serving in the local church as a pastor, including time at Willow Creek and planting a church, he founded Speak with People. It's an organization that helps leaders improve their communication skills by elevating the importance and practice of healthy communication. Since 1996, he has spoken to over 150,000 people at churches, conferences, companies, and schools. Beyond the stage, he's been married to Tracy since 1997, nurturing a family of 5 children, 3 of whom have a rare genetic disease called PKU, and 1 child who was adopted from China. I think you guys are really going to be inspired and encouraged by this conversation with my friend, Jason Raitz. Well, Jason, I am so excited to have you on the Collide Kids podcast today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, this is so fun. I love online connections, and I'm really excited to talk to you today. Would you just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. Well, my name is Jason Raitz, born and raised in the city of Detroit and lived in Michigan and Illinois for most of my life until God finally delivered us from the snow and the ice and the black ice and scraping windshields. So now we live outside of Tampa, Florida. My wife and I have been married since 97. Tracy is her name. We have 5 kids. Our oldest will be 24 this Friday, actually. Our family were huge adoption advocates. We adopted our youngest from China 7 years ago. What a journey that was. Cool. My wife grew up in a family who modeled adoption. They fostered and adopted they fostered dozens of special needs kids, and then they ended up adopting 5 of them. Just amazing. So We're adoption advocates. We are autism advocates. 2 of our kids have autism. So we're learning and navigating the life of autism. And then if that's not enough, we're rare disease community advocates. 3 of our children have a rare disease called PKU. Very few people have it in the country, 16,000 actually. And it means that their bodies don't process the acid in protein. So they can't eat protein. No meat, no eggs, no cheese, no dairy, no pasta. So our life is it's already very full, but very unique with gram scales and medical formula and measuring. And so I was a pastor for 26 years, youth pastor, small groups pastor, planted a church in the middle of Michigan. That's what we do when we're from Michigan. Thrive Church. Led it for 10 years and handed it off to our young executive pastor, and he's doing a great job leading it. We moved down to Tampa and started an organization called Speak with People. Years ago, I was reading Proverbs 10:11 from the Message, and it said, "The mouth of a good person is a deep, life-giving well. The mouth of the wicked is a dark cave of abuse." And I've just always loved communication. I've loved speaking from the front. I've loved one-on-one conversations, just everything communication. And I thought to myself, boy, I don't want to be that dark cave of abuse person. So this phrase, speak with people, not at them, started developing. I thought I came up with it. I did not. I found out that Vin Scully, the great LA Dodger broadcaster, said it in the 70s. So we started a company to help leaders improve their communication skills. I love Maxwell's great quote, leadership is influence. I think how we steward our influence is through our communication.
Yeah.
Our words can cause such great damage, or it can cause such great momentum in our life. So I travel and speak. I've been speaking at camps and retreats in the church world forever. I still do that, but I kind of transitioned. I speak in public schools, and so I do an assembly called Words Matter, train teachers in healthy communication skills. And then I've kind of transitioned into the corporate world. I do a training seminar called Healthy Communication Skills, and we've been able to do that in many companies where we just teach people healthy one-on-one interpersonal skills. And it's been pretty amazing. We have a podcast as well, the Speak with People podcast. So
I love it. And I don't feel any pressure at all about having a conversation with a speaking expert. So no, this is going to be so fun. Well, before we get into that, I always make my guests tell me a joke because this is a podcast for kids. So what have you got for us today?
My joke ability is not great, but here we go. Okay. I always struggled in math, so this one always made me chuckle. But what does the tree say when they look in the mirror? What does the tree say when they look in the mirror?
I don't know.
The tree says, "Gee, I'm a tree. Gee, I'm a tree." Which coincidentally, it took me a couple years to pass the geometry class.
Gee, I'm a tree.
That's it. That's all I got.
I like that. That's a good one. Love it. Well, okay. So let's talk a little bit about what your passion is about communication. You said earlier, communication is influence. And so what is it about that is so important to you?
Yeah, I think like many of us, I have either been launched or sunk by either my own communication or someone else's communication in my life. Mm-hmm. In my assembly, when I talk to kids, I show a picture of 5th grade Jason. It's just a hoot. And 5th grade Jason for me is this, really influential time because I was at the end of elementary school. Things were going swimmingly well. And then 1 year later, I'm in the 6th grade and everything had drastically changed. I was shorter, chubbier, was a great target to be made fun of. And for the next, 6th, 7th, 8th grade years, the daggers that came at me through words were so intense that I had migraines all the time, was always filled with anxiety. I grew up in the church. My parents got saved when I was young. My dad was my youth pastor. My mom worked at the church office that we worked in. I went to Christian school, K through 12. My parents tortured us with Bible trivia. I mean, I had... we're like memorizing, what was the donkey's name in chapter 3 of Habakkuk, we are like, I look back now and I just, what an amazing childhood. My wife and I both, we don't know how we hit the parent lottery, how God blessed us with 2 sets of parents that we admire and love and all that kind of stuff. But even though I grew up in the Christian home, I knew scripture, I went to Christian school, I had a small group lead, all those things. For whatever reason, Satan attacked so greatly that I just had the hardest time believing it. And so 8th grade year, I'm on a retreat. I'm on the retreat because Tina is there. I'm like, okay, Tina's on the retreat. I guess I'll sign up for the retreat. And so I'm walking Saturday night. Saturday night retreats are just, they're powerful nights. And so I'm walking to the fire, and in the distance, I can hear them start to sing, I am a C, I am a CH. I'm really dating myself now. I am a
love that song.
Yes. And my small group leader, Andy, stopped me, and he just said, before we go over there, what's it going to take for you to realize how incredible you are? And I was like, what is happening? He's like, Jason, you walk around making all these other people laugh. You make all these other people make sure that they're enjoying things, but I can tell it's just not the same for you. And he spoke Ephesians 2:10 into me, which I had memorized, heard a million times, but for whatever reason, it just clicked. And something powerful happened in me that night, and it was this kind of giant shift. And so I think for me, My life has been so drastically improved, so drastically blessed through the power of communication.
Yeah.
And so I think about those people who have spoke those powerful, powerful words in us. And for me, as you dive into communication, words are honestly such a small part of the communication process. And yet they carry so much weight.
So true.
They carry, so much pain, or they carry so much life. Most research says 7 to 8% of your communication is words.
Yeah.
And then another 35 or so percent is your tone. And then another 55% is your body language, So from a young age, I just learned that I could make people laugh with words. Mm-hmm. I learned the power of story. Actually, at 10 years old, my parents took me to a Res Band concert. Resurrection Band was a kind of a heavy metal Christian band in the 80s. You could Google them. They got the leather on, the ripped sleeves,
the hair.
The long hair. And they took me to a Res Band concert, and I stood there, 10 years old. And at the end, Glenn Kaiser, the lead singer, he stopped and he just shared his story of how he met Jesus. And at 10 years old, it marked me so greatly because I looked around and I saw this room full of people that were just jumping, yelling, screaming, and you could have heard a pin drop in that room. And I can still remember that 10 years old. I mean, that's many years ago, years ago. I could still take myself in that room and be amazed at the power of communication. The next day I came home, went in our basement, and I built a stage.
Nice.
Just this little stage. And then I begged my mom to make some chocolate chip cookies because her cookies were famous. And I went out to my neighborhood friends and I said, I'll give you some cookies if you come listen to me. And then I got down on the stage and I did little sermons and I did little altar calls and I did little stories.
Oh, that's cool.
Time and time again, there's research that shows, the people who are promoted the quickest, given the more responsibility, sometimes even, given more raises, are the people who have strong communication skills, who can stand up in front of a group of people, compel them, persuade them, inform them. So that was a little dive into the story there, but that's kind of where it was birthed, just this love for communication and the potential that it has.
That's so good. I love that. And I think, just like you discovered that when you were younger, I think a lot of kids think, okay, when I become an adult, that's when I'll figure out what I'm good at. But really, there's things inside of us at a young age that if we have opportunities to learn about those things, we can grow them and we can nurture them. And as parents, we can pour into our kids and see those things. So I love that you shared that. I think that's so cool. So we're talking about communication. Tell us a little bit about, those kids that are like, okay, I want to learn to be a good communicator, or adults too. I mean, we're all trying to be good communicators. So what are some tips? What are some things that we can do to be good communicators? We'll be right back after this. Raising kids in the digital age isn't easy, but Bark Technology makes products that help parents keep their kids safe online and in real life. They have an app, a phone, and a home device that lets families set parental controls on their internet-connected devices. I love the app because it helps us manage screen time and blocks websites and apps we want our kids to avoid. It also sends alerts and gives us the ability to monitor texts and social media and even track your child's location. Visit bark.us to learn more about how you can keep your kids safe online. Use the code COLLIDEKIDS to get 15% off your subscription of the Bark app.
Oh, I love it. Well, the percentage of people who are wanting that is a little bit smaller, right? I mean, even in today in 2024, I don't think it's still the number one fear, but it's up there. For most people, public speaking, standing in front of people is one of their deepest, darkest fears. Mm-hmm. But especially in kids ministry, if we're giving kids the opportunity to communicate in front of their peers, something so powerful happens in their life and leadership. Because when you can communicate in front of people, when you can articulate your thoughts, when you can help persuade someone, and especially in the church world, when you can teach scripture and pour that into someone else, I mean, just something powerful is erupted in their lives. And more kids just aren't given the shot. One of my growing discontentments in the church after being a pastor for 26 years, I just looked around and went, why is it so much of an adult show? Why do we have adults on stage all the time? And then all of a sudden I turn on American Idol and there's a 13-year-old singing with such a 10-year-old on America's Got Talent. And I'm like, why are we not utilizing their gifts, giving them the place to dream? You know, maybe some kids have walked away from the church because they've never been given ownership.
Yes. I'm actually writing a book about that. So I love that you're saying all of that.
Yes. I love it. You know, I coach and I've coached a lot of youth pastors over the years. And it's tough because you get the job as a kids pastor or youth pastor and you're like, okay, I'm the one. I got to be the primary communicator. You don't have to do everything. There are so many kids and students who are so hungry to do more than stack chairs.
Absolutely.
And so find them, you know, give them the opportunity to get up in front and, you know, soar and succeed. Sorry, I get excited about this. You know, communication is our currency as a leader. So if you've ever been in charge, if you've ever been entrusted to lead something, well, the best way you can grow that something is through communication. So you can either communicate at people, which for us, you know, we teach this philosophy of communicating with or at. At communication is unhealthy communication. This is when we lean into toxic habits that really open up people's eyes to communication's dirty little secret. And communication's dirty little secret is if I turn up the volume of unhealthy communication, which means I lead out of fear, I talk down to people, I manipulate them with my words, I have no empathy in I have no warmth in my communication. If I continually speak at them, the dirty little secret is the more I turn up that volume of unhealthy, people are probably going to listen to you because they're afraid. For years, I worked on an MBA years ago, and during the MBA, they handed me a book called Primal Leadership by Daniel Goleman, all about emotional intelligence. And there's all this research in primal leadership that shows for years, people led and spoke to each other out of fear because they thought that's the only way people will listen. I can only get people's attention if I'm loud. I can only get them to do what I want if I'm angry. But then Daniel Goleman found all this research that that's actually not true. If I actually tap into their positive emotions, if they enjoy their work, if they're happy about what they're doing, if they're actually more productive, they love it more. And so we teach people all the time, rid yourself of those at habits, which are those toxic habits, because the more you utilize them, it's like you just build this wall, you know, between you and them.
Yeah. Can you give us an example of what that sounds like to speak at someone? Can you give us some examples about that?
Ooh, yeah. Maybe some backhanded comments, you know, maybe you're a parent and your kid just struck out, this is a true story from my life. When I was in high school, a friend of mine struck out. He walked back. His dad walked up to the bench and said, you don't need to keep practicing. You're never going to learn how to hit a baseball. Like, ooh, like, you know, powerful backhanded. I took my family to Hollywood Studios a few summers ago here in Florida, and our youngest, he has autism. He's on the spectrum. Anything loud is difficult. So he mostly has his earplugs in most of the time. And he just hated it. Too many people, too hot. He says the sun makes his skin leak, which is his autistic way of saying sweating.
Yes.
So we walk into the bathroom and he's screaming the entire time. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. I want to go home. And, you know, families are looking at me like, okay, does this child belong to you? You know, like is everything, I mean, he's Chinese, you know, I'm not, you know, we're trying to, so finally we go into the bathroom, and bathrooms are rough for Kai because the blow dryers, you know, they feel like, he says they feel like somebody's stabbing him in the ears. So we're going quick to try to get out so he doesn't hear a blow dryer. And in one of the stalls is a dad with probably a son, my son's age. And the dad says to his son, of all the days you choose to get sick, you choose the day where I save up for a year to bring my family to a happy place, and you ruin your family's day. And I heard this little, probably 9-year-old, 8-year-old say, Daddy, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to ruin. And then he threw up, you know, and then, you know, and I'm like, I can't believe it. Now that's way on one end, like way on one end of the at. But it could be gossip. It could be slander. It could be innuendos. Speaking at could be, especially in the leadership standpoint, hey, I need you to do this, instead of, hey, this is what I'm thinking we're doing. Here's the steps that I've laid out. Give me your opinion. What do you think are some of the things? Am I on the right path here? And instead of having that dialogue, it's just do this, no questions, that kind of, and then even for me, I worked at a couple of larger mega churches where there really wasn't, and this is no offense towards mega churches. I know that they're healthy ones, but just in my department of this very large church, my boss decided to lead out of fear that I felt. He and I talked about it a few times, but there was not that healthy dialogue. It was like, do this and basically don't mess it up, kind of idea. So that's kind of some of the, speaking at our website, speakwithpeople.com/with or at. You can download our with or at checklists, and they kind of go into deeper. There's a quiz on there. So you can kind of go, okay. So we really try to help people go, okay, if I stay away from those toxic habits, there's 15 of them when it's all said and done. If I self-identify them, if I ask the people closest to me, and then I create a plan to stay away from them, I can improve my communication. I can invest in the other side, which is the with healthy habits, which is the breathing into things. We kind of put it like this. You either want to be a vampire, so you're sucking the life out of people. That's the at habits. Or you're in oxygen tank. You are speaking with people, breathing life into them.
Yeah. I love that you said self-aware too, because I think a lot of times we think, I communicated that perfect, especially as a parent. Let me just be authentic for a minute. As a parent, I'm like, I specifically said this very well, and no one in my family seems to understand what I just said. So I think being self-aware of sometimes the way we communicate, like you said, our tone, or even just being willing to ask, like, did what I said come through? Did it make sense? And being that active listener of letting them respond before you make demands. So I think that's going to be crucial especially for families.
Absolutely. And clarity is king. Dr. Brene Brown says clarity is kindness. I mean, clarity is everything. And so many times, especially as we're leading our kids, especially as a parent to me, I'll bark an order, or I'll say, hey, we got to all do this. Or I'll try to explain something and I'm constantly saying, does that make sense? Does that make sense? That makes sense? Well, it probably doesn't make sense if I have to keep asking,
right.
So, just thinking through, not leaving things open-ended, not leaving it up for imagination, just being clear with that. This is what I expect. This is what I would like it to look like. What do you think? What did you hear? One of my mentors, he's been a mentor for 25 years. I bet he's ended every conversation with, now, what did you hear? What are the things on my end that, we talked about that I need to do? I mean, he asked me those hard questions at the end of the conversation. And probably for the first 10 years, I hated it. But now I'm like, oh, wow. Like we wrap up the conversation with some clarity.
Yeah, that's so good. I think that's so helpful, and good advice for parents too, to say, what did you just hear me say? Like, what did you understand was the point of that instruction? So that's good.
Yes. And for parents, the game has changed. Communication has changed with the onslaught of technology. I mean, we're also addicted. I mean, it's amazing the research now that kind of shows like children's brains are being hardwired, so differently. And, my teenagers, and it's not just mine, but teenagers in general, they always have their AirPods in or their headphones. We have a whole generation that's learning how to communicate, with something on their heads. So like my generation, Gen X, I'll go to talk to somebody, at a, Walmart or something, and I'll stand in front of them for a minute and they'll look at me like, well, just ask your question. But what's happening in the communication process is I don't think they're ready to hear because they have their AirPods in, their headphones on. They've been ready to hear. So that there's like some of those communication breakdowns, that are happening now, or with our kids with their iPads, and you think they're not listening to you, but they are. And so there's a whole lot to navigate.
Yeah, it really is. There's a lot. And so I think that just asking questions and being willing to dive in with people, I think that's so important. So let's talk a little bit more about speaking with people, because I think this is just good for relationships, right? This is good for friendships as well as being in leadership or in a family situation. So tell us a little bit about speaking with. What does that look like?
We've all been on an airplane, and I usually tune out the flight attendant when they're going through the pre-flight stuff. But if you listen, there's one point where they say, hey, if we lose pressure, there's going to be these oxygen masks that fall. And you got to put it on yourself first and then help out the person. And so speaking with people actually starts with coming from a healthy place. So it's actually number one on our speak with list. So we say you've got to assess and prioritize your health, because if you're healthy, there's an exponentially greater chance that your communication is going to be healthy. So we say your emotional, your mental, your spiritual, your financial, your relational, like, are you taking steps to make sure each of those areas are healthy? We all start the day with the same amount. I think about my morning and I'm like, okay, the cup is full. And then throughout the day, like, I'm just emptying it out on different things that take out my energy. If I'm not putting back healthy habits that are refilling it, when I get to that moment where I asked my kid to do something for the fourth time and then I get impatient and I snap and I have one of those, what were you thinking moments? Well, I can trace it back to, okay, I'm not taking time in solitude, or I'm not taking time to, drink water. So we start with, okay, you've got to be a healthy leader. And then speaking with, you value empathy and compassion. So often leaders or people in general, we miss that, or we think empathy is just feeling sorry for someone. It's just so much more, right? It's imagining someone's hurt. It's getting inside of what could be going on in their lives. It's listening to them. And then that compassion, that twisting of your guts to actually do something. When we speak with people, we actually speak with words that breathe life into them. Now, that doesn't mean we can't speak challenging words that will stir them to action, but they've got to come from an empathetic place. And many people miss that. I mean, if you go to the comment section on most YouTube videos or Facebook groups, you'll see that empathy is kind of missing from the world today.
That's a nice way to say it.
Yeah, there's other ways to say it, I guess, but it's pretty tough, And so we like to say healthy communication is oxygen for your relationships and your leadership. So if you're every day going, all right, I'm going to make sure these are important, then you do that. And in the same way, you speak with people, your emotions don't control you. So you've got a handle on your emotions. And so, how often with our kids, or how often in a ministry setting, I was a junior high youth pastor for a long, long time. Junior high students have an amazing way to get under your skin, right? And, if your emotions aren't in check, you're going to explode. You're going to say something that you wish you could take back, and you'll ask for forgiveness. But the problem is, and this is a illustration I do in my assemblies when I go into public schools, which I bring 3 kids up, and there's 3 tubes of toothpaste in front of them. And I say to everybody, on the count of 3, you got to get all the toothpaste out of the tube. And so everyone's like, yeah. And so everyone's cheering. Toothpaste is flying. Typically there's a winner. And then I say, okay, the game's not over. On the count of 3, you have to get all the toothpaste back in the tube. And everybody's losing it. Like, oh my gosh. And there's typically one kid who just starts scooping it with his finger, and he puts it in his mouth and he's trying to, it's disgusting.
Gross.
Typically you have the one, female student who's like, this is impossible. I'm not going to make a mess,
Right.
But I use that as an illustration. Words come out so incredibly easy. I mean, so easy, but we can't get them back, and the damage is caused. And so that's why it's so important to pursue health. So when those moments come and you do want to explode, in 1 Corinthians 13, when Paul says love is patient, that word patient in the Greek can be defined, takes a long time to boil. Takes a long time to boil. Like, ooh, like, how's my patience with my kids, know? As a dad, I'm in a totally different place. My first 4 were totally different than our adopted son. My first 4 kind of adored me. They always wanted to be with me. I could go away for a week and my adopted son would be like, oh, hi, like he wouldn't even know I was gone. I know it's part of his autism and, some of those kind of things. So, these kind of things are so helpful, to make sure that our communication is healthy. A couple other with habits, your communication's clear and straightforward. You and I talked about that. Transparency and honesty are the foundation. I think Generation Z and Alpha are probably the generation who can sniff out dishonesty faster than anyone.
Oh, yeah.
They've grown up with technology. They'll cancel you in no time if they think you're a liar or dishonest.
Yeah.
I think another with habit is you're a student of people and obsessed with helping them succeed. People can tell right away, if you're just in it for you or you're in it to help other people succeed. And we should genuinely want to help other people succeed, not only because it's, the moral thing to do, but Jesus modeled it. Philippians 2 talks about to the extent of how Jesus, did it for us. Speaking with, you value someone's story by learning it and remembering it. Our stories are so valuable and so important. And then for some, what's difficult is we just don't take the time to ask the right questions to learn someone's story. We just ask, the real boring questions instead of, learning great questions. Like instead of asking, how was your day at school? Tell me about one of the moments your teacher made you laugh. Was there a moment that scared you? Open up the questions a little bit.
Yeah.
And especially if you're getting to know somebody and you want to dive into their story, ask questions like, can you tell me the most important people in your life? What's your earliest memory? What are you proudest of? What I do a lot for my son, my 10-year-old, is I'll lay in bed with him at night and I'll just ask him kind of a multiple choice questions. Is 7-Eleven your favorite? Are Slurpees your favorite? Or Icy's your favorite? Icy's, and so we'll kind of go back and forth between those type of questions because they're quick. You can kind of get right to them. Another one, you recognize moments spent with people are valuable. So often we're sitting one-on-one with somebody and we're hitting our watch, our phone's going off. We're looking at people. Another one, different opinions and thoughts are respected and heard, especially for parents. Would it hurt us to take the time to understand where our kids are coming from? We may still have differing things. We may still have to parent with a hard decision. Another habit, you cultivate the habit of asking questions before forming an opinion. So you actually take the time. Why do you feel about that? Help me understand why you did this.
Yeah, that's good.
Your speaking is life-giving. It's so simple, but when we do our corporate training, we use a simple acronym, HELP, H-E-L-P. And so use words that help. So words that are honest, encouraging, is this going to lift someone up? Is this going to encourage them? Is this going to push them through? It's like a 1-to-7 ratio. For every 7 discouraging things that are said to you, you only hear 1 encouraging thing. And so a lot of times I think the Spirit will prompt us and say, write that person a card, send them a text, let them know how much you think. And we don't, we say, they know how I feel.
Yeah. I even try, because I'm sort of a forgetful person. So if I think I'll do that later, I never will. So
Absolutely.
If I'm in the moment with someone and I, see something in them that I like, or even just someone I'm passing by and I'm like, she has really cool shoes, I'll always say it. And sometimes it embarrasses my family because I'm like, hey, I like your shoes from across the store, but I want her to know those are cool shoes. Or, like when someone does something kind, I always want to make sure that I respond to them in a way that lets them know that they've been seen and do it in the moment instead of waiting for later.
Absolutely. And especially, if you're a kids pastor or a youth pastor or a small group leader, 26 years removed from being a vocational pastor, I'm now a small group leader. So I have 10th grade boys and they've really stretched my patience, but I'm like, I don't want to miss those moments. My life was drastically changed at 10 years old because my small group leader spoke truth into my life.
Yeah.
And so, I want to look for those opportunities to be able to, speak into their life. Just a couple more on the with list. Your nonverbal communication, body language is in sync with your words.
Yeah.
If you parent preteens and teens, you're going to very quickly, see how powerful tone and body language are to communication.
Yes.
I love Dale Carnegie has this quote, your smile is a messenger of your goodwill. It takes barely nothing to smile. My grandma used to say, Jason, there are 2 types of people in this world, beautiful people and ugly people. And I'm like, oh, okay. And she said, the only difference is beautiful people smile. And then your communication's filled with laughter and joy, especially a believer. Ken Davis, the great Christian comedian, author, said, joy entered the world when the stone was rolled away. If anybody has a reason to laugh, and especially as a communicator, when you speak, when you're given the opportunity to teach God's word, stand in front of people, encourage, why would you not use laughter? Over the years, I've been told everything from, laughter's not deep, Laughter's not mature. We need to get mature and be, mature believers. And I'm like, how is laughter not at its core one of the deepest things that you'll do? Laughter, especially as a communicator, when I go speak at a middle school assembly, if you want to know how good of a communicator you are, go stand in front of 800 middle school kids, that are, and this last one, I was in Peoria, Illinois a couple weeks ago, and I walk up, I grab the microphone from the principal. I'm about to go into my story because all I have is stories to grab their attention. Mm-hmm. So I tell a story when I'm in 8th grade. My best friend's mom vacuumed up their pet bird. It's a hilarious story. Bird survived, but she's ripping apart the vacuum and the bird's covered. And kids are laughing. Adults are laughing. All I got is that story. Right before I go to start, there's a 6th grade boy in the front row who, without using his hands, he puts both feet behind his head. Okay. And 8 rows of kids all start looking at that one. And I'm like, I can't compete with that. But stories, I'll tell the story with this bird and kids are laughing and we're all enjoying it together. And what that laughter does is it starts to break down the walls between you. It starts breaking down the walls in people's hearts because life is so hard. Things have been said to them and they put up these walls, and laughter just deconstructs those. And I'm actually able to say things to people that you'd be shocked because they trust me. Mm-hmm. And they come up to me afterwards, and you would think that we've known each other for years, but because I've been vulnerable, because we've laughed together, there's that trust level there. So lean into laughter. So a lot of times our speak with people list, people are looking for exact things, phrases to say, and we can give those, but we really are looking at the health of the overall leader. Because if you're a healthy leader and you're living out those areas, your communication will follow.
Oh, I love all of that. Well, Jason, this has been so good. I've learned so much, and I'm so thankful that you have shared today, and we've got to laugh together a little bit. So thank you so much for being on the show today. Where can our listeners find out about your website and your podcast?
Absolutely. Our website is speakwithpeople.com. And everything's there, a podcast. We have a weekly blog post, the different coaching packages that we do, the different, opportunities. You can sign up to be on our email list. And then you can find me on all the social medias at Jason Raitz, Raitz.
Awesome. Well, that's so good. Well, thank you so much for sharing today. And before I let you go, I always ask my guests to tell me a memory from when they were a kid. So I need to hear a memory. I hope your bird didn't get sucked up by the vacuum. What's a memory you want to share with us today?
One of my best memories, my grandma lived a block down the street. My dad was working on a car. It was probably February in Detroit, which was very, very cold. And I was probably 10 years old, and he's letting me help him. He's changing the spark plugs. And I get in there and I start to undo the spark plug, and it snaps in half, and half of it's still inside the engine block. And I'm just expecting him to lose his mind, yell at me, what did you do? And I grew up with the world's greatest dad. He looked at me and he said, hey, these kind of things happen. And instead of getting upset about it, let me teach you how to fix it. And it turns out he didn't have the tool, so he had to walk a mile to an auto parts store. And he didn't make me walk with him. He just said, hey, why don't you come with me? And we walked and talked, and it's just absolutely incredible. I look back now and I'm like, what lottery did we win? Because my childhood is just filled with those memories of my parents, doing those kind of moments. So
I love that. And let that be an encouragement to parents right now. I can't tell you how many people, when I ask them this question, that they always share something that was just a special moment that was mundane and everyday life type stuff. It wasn't an extravagant gift or an amazing vacation, although some of those are really cool. It's those little moments that happen in our everyday life with our kids. That's what makes a big impact. So
absolutely.
Thank you for sharing that. I love that story. That's so cool. Well, thanks for being on the show today. Well, I have definitely learned a lot today, and I'm so thankful that Jason was able to share with us. His main message and what his whole company is called is speak with people, not at people. It's a big difference. At is these unhealthy habits of the way we communicate through fear or talking down to someone or being manipulative or forceful or even using our words to gossip and slander about someone else. Words carry so much weight and they can bring pain or life. So we need to be careful about what we say and how we encourage the people around us. It's so important. I love when he said communication is a currency as a leader. We need to keep this perspective that our words are valuable and we need to be sure to communicate in ways that help other people. I loved in one of his stories he shared where he talked about the song, I Am a Sea. And if you don't know what that is, I'm going to sing it for you because I don't think my kids know what this song is. It's I am a sea, I am a CH, I am a CHRISTIAN, and I have CHRIST in my HEART, and I will LIVEETERNALLY. Now, if you can figure out what all those words spell, then you're a spelling master. If not, you could write the words down and figure them out. I bet you'll get it pretty soon. Or maybe mom and dad can help you with that one. Well, if you'd like to learn more about Jason and his company, Speak with People, and his podcast and all the great information he has, head over to his website, speakwithpeople.com. Well, now it's time for the kids only segment. This is the part of the show where you get to be on the podcast. So here is a joke from my friend Lottie.
What did the blueberry say to the other blueberry? Why do you look so blue?
So blue. I love blueberries. Yum. Well, thank you, Lottie, for sharing that joke. Hey, if you would like to be on the podcast just like Lottie was and share your favorite joke or Bible verse or your favorite song, head over to my website, collidekidspodcast.com, and click the tab at the top that says Kids Only. You can also send it to me through my social media. I'm on Facebook at the Collide Kids Podcast or on Instagram at Collide Kids Pod, and I would love for you to follow me there as well. If you'd like to support the podcast, you can do that by subscribing and following this podcast on whatever podcast app you're using, and leave a rating and a review. I love reading those. It's so encouraging if they're nice, you know. I mean, if you need to say something critical, say it with an encouragement. That's what we learned today. You can also share this episode with friends and family and let them know why you and your family like to listen. And anytime you think about it, I always appreciate your prayer support as well. Well, I hope you guys have a great week. I hope you were encouraged to communicate better and to make sure that the way that you're speaking with people makes an impact. And in case no one has told you today, I would love to be the first to remind you that God loves you so much. Thanks for listening.
You don't have to go very far looking for bad news because somehow it just finds you. So finding peace in the chaos can be really difficult, but it doesn't have to be because the River mobile app exists. The River is a Christian music radio station dedicated to playing music to help you get through life's toughest moments or life's happiest moments and everywhere in between. And all from artists who love Jesus and are real people just like you. Listening is easy. You can download it wherever you get apps from. Just search 1049 The River or listen online at riverradio.com. And know that The River is proud to partner with the Collide Kids podcast.